All I know is since I've met you at the National Press Club in Washington, where you and I presented on an issue concerning unfairness in appraisal of homes, I've had conversation with you. And I've been privy to knowing a lot about what happened. Your choice on what you'd like to share and how it may have made you stronger in that process.
So going back to my childhood, that's really the foundation of who I am today, is what made me become who I am. I my father ended up fighting for custody of me so that he didn't have to pay child support, and he won custody of me when I was 12, and then I had to go live with him for about a year and a half. He ended up setting up an arranged marriage for me to redeem the family because I wasn't 100% Chinese, even though it was him who chose my mother, and I had no choice in the matter. I was the one who was tasked with redeeming the family, and so I had to marry someone that he chose that was a full Chinese descent blood and who was worthy of taking over the family businesses. Because my father became quite wealthy. He started so many different companies, and that was the only way I would have any access to them if I married who he presented to me. And I wouldn't go. I refused. Even at 12 and 13, I was defiant, and I was like, I don't, if you think that I need to marry somebody in order to redeem the family, I'm not willing to do it. I don't think I've done anything wrong, and I will choose my own husband. You marry him. And so he basically blackmailed me from the family, blacklisted me from the family, and he was like, if you're not going to be obedient, these are the consequences. And I fully understood I was going to be left on my own for the rest of my life. And I had always been alone up until that point, so I was confident in that. And I was like, God's never failed me. He's not going to fail me today. And so I ended up marrying my best friend at the time, who was Javier. He was 14, and then we were only married for about 2 months, and then we had the marriage annulled. And then I ended up marrying his friend, who was 27 years old. I was 14 years old still, and we ended up being married for 17 years. We had 3 kids together. I ended up adopting my mom's 2 children, my sisters Bridget and Jennifer, when they're 1 and 2 years old. She was still having financial issues, and she was still married to someone who was an abuser of children, and so the state ended up intervening and taking my sisters away, and so that turned into about a 7-year court battle for custody of my sisters, and I believe I was about 17 years old when I started that battle to get custody of them, and while I had my own kids. So I'm 17 and trying to maintain a family of 5 on my own. Even though I was married, my husband was in and out of jail. He was facing his own demons back then, and couldn't control his temper yet, and that now he's a completely different man. But back then, he was very verbally abusive, physically abusive, and I'm a fighter, and I'm not someone who's going to put up with that. And so he was in and out of jail, and I was left taking care of 5 kids on my own. So that meant I couldn't work a regular job. I couldn't, there wasn't a 9 to 5 job that would abide by my kids' school schedules, who had to be at school by 7:15 and be out by 2:15, right? And there's 5 of them to pick up. And there wasn't a job where I could take my kids with me. So, I sold guns in the beginning. I worked for STI International, but that got difficult with an abusive relationship. You're not supposed to be around firearms with a husband who's coming around threatening you. So he ended up causing me to lose that job, or actually, I got an ultimatum. I had to file for divorce and prove it, or I could keep the job. So I ended up voluntarily leaving and going to Rooms to Go and sold furniture there for about 3 years. And I was one of the top sales agents there, and this broker kept coming in to buy furniture from me. His name was Mark Minshew. And he kept telling me, you don't need, you shouldn't be here. You're better than this. You're a better salesman than just furniture. And I didn't have the confidence in myself. I didn't, I was in and out of foster care home. Nobody believed me up until someone like him came and was offering to mentor me, and I didn't trust that either. And then I started looking into it, and becoming a realtor wasn't that hard, and I was afraid to tell him that I didn't have any college education at all. I only had a GED. I was married when I was 14. I dropped out of high school when I was married at 14. So the highest level of education I've ever received is to the ninth grade. And I finally told him, and he was like, I have realtors who have master's degrees, they're engineers, and they're the worst realtors they are. The best realtors I have nothing but a high school diploma or a GED, and they just walk out the door selling. So that sold me. That gave me the confidence. Well, if they could do it, maybe I could do it too. And even with all these kids. So, I went to school, went to night school to do all my tests online because I worked all day long, two different jobs at the time. And then I finally passed my real estate license and I became a realtor. It just gave me the sense of security that I never had. I can work all day long or I can work around my kid's schedule. And no matter what I was doing, they could be right there with me. If I was showing houses, they were at the showings with me. If I had an open house, they were hosting the open house for me. If I had a closing, they would sit in the title company. These kids, they could probably sell houses better than half the realtors in the US right now. But, real estate is really you know, what God blessed me with. And so to get out of the situation I was in. And so I saw that as an opportunity to spread that type of freedom to other single parents, other single mothers,